Jody mentioned in the introduction my past as a little bit of a troublemaker in my college days. I remember we used to tell the deans that taking on our conservative campus newspaper was a bit like wrestling with a pig. Not only did it get everyone dirty, but the pig liked it. Now, we, the three of us on this podium, I believe we have a couple of things in common. First of all, I think we are all of, for all our differences, we are of one mind on the subject of Islamic radicalism and terrorism. Since we all are relatively open-minded, we believe in keeping channels of open communication with the Islamic radicals, and this open communication, I think, should take the form of live ammunition. Now, I believe in a sense it is not inaccurate to say also that all three of us are in a certain way agnostics. And what I mean by that is that there is a difference between religious belief and rational knowledge. I would say, for example, that I believe in God, but I wouldn't say I believe in my brother. I know the guy. So you believe when you don't know. In that sense, we are all in a field of open inquiry, using the same tools. Inference to the best explanation, history, philosophy, science, and so on. Christopher Hitchens began by posing what is to me a very striking question. He said, "Isn't it odd that you've got 100,000 years of uneventful history, and then suddenly God appears to jump in the picture? And suddenly, if you will, the religious story gets going." I would submit that even if you took God out of the picture completely, the puzzle remains. If we've been on this planet for 100,000 years as Darwinian primates, having pretty much the same brains that we have now, why is it the case that for 95,000 of those years, man accomplished virtually nothing? Not having invented a wheel, not having come up with a cave painting even, and then suddenly, 5,000 years ago, history gets started. History gets started in a lot of different places. The Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Sumerians, everybody starts inventing stuff. It does appear as if some sort of a transcendent breath may have grabbed a couple of those Darwinian primates and breathed something we might call a soul into them. This would explain things a lot better, wouldn't it? Now, I'd like to say a little bit about myself. I'd like to say a little bit about God. I'd like to say a little bit about Christianity. I'd like to say a little bit about Jesus. In my own case, I'm a little bit of an oddity. I come from Bombay, India. My family is from a part of India called Goa. I was born Christian. The reason for this is the Portuguese missionaries dropped in on us a few hundred years ago, and they came with the Bible in one hand and a bayonet in the other. They were extremely persuasive. And yet, so I was raised Christian. But this is a point I want to make about the nature of religious belief. A lot of us learn our Christianity, our Judaism, when we are very young. We learn a Christianity adapted to our young mind when we are 5 or 7 or 8 years old. This is what I call crayon Christianity. It's a simplified idea of God as a big man with a Santa Claus beard and so on. Now, this is the Christianity we take to college, where we meet the younger versions of Christopher Hitchens in the form of graduate students, sometimes young professors, and they pelt your religious belief with skepticism. How can you believe this? Miracles, isn't that ridiculous in an age of science and so on? So many of us find that we can't answer those objections at a young age, and we find ourselves pulling away from our faith, from our religious convictions. This is not because those objections cannot be answered. We simply don't know the answers at that point in life. So, in some senses, it is only in adult life that I have thought about those same questions and come to a certain adult or mature theism, very different from the beliefs I held when I was 8. And this theism, I think Dennis and I in some ways want to show, can withstand the skeptical assault and meet it on its own ground. I want to say in the short time I have left, I've got to adopt the motto here that King Henry VIII used with one of his wives. He said, "I shouldn't keep you too long." So I want to make one, if I may, scientific argument for God's existence. In recent decades, leading scientists have asked a very interesting question. The universe as we know it operates according to some very fixed numerical values. I'm not talking about our planet, the universe as a whole. The gravitational force is so strong, the electromagnetic force is so strong, the strong nuclear force, the so-called electroweak force, and so on and so on. One physicist, Lee Smolin, describes it as God is sitting at a desk with 100 different dials. Every dial set to a very definite and precise number. So the scientists ask this question: what if we were to alter the dials a little bit, fool with them, not a whole lot? What would happen? Stephen Hawking discusses this question in A Brief History of Time, and he notes that if you touch one of the dials and move it, he's talking about the rate of expansion of the universe, move it not 10%, not 1%, but 1 part in 100,000 millionth, we would have no universe. We would have no life. The entire universe needs to be as big as it is and as old as it is and to have precisely the values that it does, or else we would not be having this conversation. The whole universe appears to be a giant conspiracy to produce, well, us. This argument has put modern atheism completely on the defensive, and I also want to say it is an argument immune to Darwinian attack. So I'm delighted to be here and look forward to a skeptical exchange on these issues. I think at the end of the day, we're all going to be saying, thank God for religion, and specifically, thank God for Christianity. Thank you.